Hello and welcome to China Global Television Network. This is The World Today. I'm Hannah Viviers in Nairobi. Here are top stories. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi begins 4-day Africa tour today. 5 major nuclear powers reaffirm a commitment to preventing an atomic war and the spread of weapons. And mass protests expected in Sudan as the country awaits the naming of a new prime minister. We begin in Africa, where Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi has begun its New Year diplomatic trip to the continent. Wang is expected to arrive in Eritrea today. He will later travel to Kenya and the Comores on the 4-day tour. It's become something of a tradition for Chinese foreign ministers to start every year by visiting Africa. We'll have more details on this in Africa Live. Well, the UN Security Council's permanent 5 members have issued a joint statement in preventing a nuclear war and avoiding an arms race. China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States signed the statement. China has responded to the joint statement to highlight a few key points. The statement says a nuclear war must never be fought and nuclear weapons should only prevent war. The 5 countries promise not to aim their nuclear weapons at each other or other countries. They also say it's important to address nuclear threats and respect the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The statement also stresses abiding to a key article in the treaty on moving to full nuclear disarmament. Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoshu welcomed the joint statement. In an interview on Monday, Ma explained the significance of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Declaration and China's position on global nuclear governance.
It's the first time that the leaders of the 5 countries issued a statement on nuclear weapons. It reflects the political will of the 5 states to prevent nuclear war and sends a shared voice for maintaining global strategic stability and reducing the risk of nuclear conflict. China has always advocated the concept that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. During the consultation process of the joint statement, China also promoted the inclusion of important elements, such as reaffirming not targeting nuclear weapons at each other or any other state. This has played an important role in convincing the 5 nations to reach a positive and weighty statement. China will continue to contribute Chinese wisdom and propose Chinese solutions to promote global governance in the nuclear field, and is willing to cooperate with all peace-loving states.
The UN's Secretary-General Antonio Gutteres has hailed the joint statement by the nuclear weapon states. The Secretary-General's spokesperson said that Gutteres was encouraged by the 5 states' commitment to prevent nuclear war and avoid an arms race. The UN chief looks forward to more details about future initiatives. Well, Western diplomats say Iran is moving too slowly to save the 2015 nuclear deal that the U.S. had unilaterally withdrawn from in 2018. But there are signs that an agreement could be reached soon. Johannes Pleshberger has more.
Despite the quite rainy weather here in Vienna, there is definitely still a silver lining on the horizon, because last week we've heard at least cautious optimism coming from pretty much all negotiating parties. For example, Russia's Mikhail Ulyanov said on Twitter that it has been the first time since June that in public there has been positive assessment about the talks, which means, according to him, that there must be some real progress. And another good sign today is that the permanent members of the UN Security Council have made a joint statement saying that they want to prevent further proliferation of nuclear weapons. Members of the UN Security Council are also members of these negotiations here in Vienna at Palais Coburg behind me, and it means that if it's possible for them to reach such a joint statement, this should be a good sign also for these talks here. Both analysts as well as some diplomats are talking about February, that an agreement could be reached by February. We know that especially the West has been putting some pressure on Iran. According to them, Iran is a bit wasting time or moving too slowly, and the West has said that there are weeks and not months left to reach an agreement.
Well, let's turn to Sudan's political transition. Mass protests against the military are expected to begin in the next hour in Khartoum. Activists have told people to march to the presidential palace in the capital. This is the 13th round of demonstrations since the October 25th takeover. Sudanese protesters are calling on the military to leave politics and hand power back to the civilian government. The developments follow the resignation of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. The United Nations has expressed regret over Hamdok's decision to leave the army in full control. The UN Special Representative in Sudan, Volker Perthes, has warned that the country is risking progress made since the ousting of longtime leader Omar al-Bashir back in 2019. Well, let's take a look at what's happening with COVID-19 in the United States. That country has recorded more than 1 million COVID-19 infections in a single day, setting a global record. Thousands of schools have delayed reopening. Almost every industry is dealing with the impact of workers calling in sick because of COVID. Tony Waterman has the latest.
The return from winter break has been a messy one. Holiday travel remained a nightmare for many on Monday, with thousands of flights canceled and delayed.
30 minutes, but I can handle that.
As a winter storm slams the Midwest and East Coast, and airlines grapple with Omicron-fueled crew shortages. United Airlines is offering pilots triple pay to keep them flying. On the ground, things weren't much better. New COVID-19 infections are averaging over 400,000 a day, a pandemic record. The surge has prompted thousands of schools to delay their reopening, scrambling to get staff and students tested before they return to the classroom. A negative COVID test will now be required at all Washington, D.C. public schools. Similar moves are underway in California, Massachusetts, Michigan, and New York. Officials determined to keep schools open amid the surge in new infections.
We are going to keep our schools open and ensure that our children are safe in a safe environment.
While grade schools try to keep the doors open, dozens of colleges and universities have opted to move classes back online, including Harvard University, which will be remote for the first 3 weeks of the semester. The top U.S. infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, saying on ABC Sunday that he hopes cases can be brought under control by March.
I hope that people who are now seeing the devastating effects that this virus has done on us with an Omicron surge, that we get more people vaccinated to the point that when Omicron comes down to a low level, we keep it down at a low level enough that it doesn't disrupt our society, our economy, our way of life.
So far, that's proved wishful thinking. The latest to get caught up in the Omicron surge, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who tested positive on Sunday, now in quarantine and attending meetings virtually.
On the vaccine front, the Food and Drug Administration on Monday authorized booster shots for children as young as 12. The CDC still needs to weigh in, and its Vaccine Advisory Committee will meet on Wednesday as it's all hands on deck to bring this record-breaking COVID surge under control. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Austin, Texas.
Well, Russia is testing a nasal COVID-19 vaccine in clinical trials. President Vladimir Putin was one of the first volunteers to take part in the process. Alyosha Milenkovic reports from Moscow.
It's a festive time here on Moscow's Red Square. Thousands have gathered to enjoy this beautiful time of year, but a very few wearing face masks, and social distancing is not strictly followed here. Just a few days ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin came out against a vaccine mandate, saying it would just bring unnecessary social tension. Instead, Russia vows to try persuading and educating people about why getting the jab helps fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. So the current policy in Russia is promoting vaccination instead of forcing people to do it. And we can see it played out right here at the vaccination center just 100 meters from the Red Square.
Judging by the numbers, more and more people want to get vaccinated here. And the number of those who want booster shots have also increased. This is because they understand that getting vaccinated is necessary if they want to protect themselves and their loved ones.
It's Friday evening, yet there are lots of people coming here and for different reasons. Galina lost her husband to COVID 6 months ago.
We were sick at the same time, but only I survived. I was vaccinated and he couldn't get a jab because of his other illnesses. Half a year has passed since then, and I have come here now to take the second jab.
Russia is among the world's leading nations in developing COVID-19 vaccines. Everything started with the world's first Sputnik V, and now a new nasal vaccine has entered clinical trials. Developers say it will provide immunity and stop the spread of the coronavirus. But not everybody here is too optimistic about it.
I'm not confident about whether the new vaccine will work. The body will respond to its active ingredients, but I'm not very confident it will provide full immunity against the coronavirus because it's never been done in the past.
Professor Zverev is one of Russia's leading vaccine experts. He warns about the yet unknown consequences of the Western RNA-based vaccines and their hasty introduction. He added that the safest currently available vaccines are China's Sinopharm jab and Russia's Chumakov, also known as Covivac. Yet the overall opinion is that no matter how effective they are, defeating the pandemic without vaccines will not be possible. Alyosha Milenkovic, CGTN, Moscow.
Well, that's it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you shortly.
So this is it. I'm just about to be shot. The little tents here, bottles are being thrown as they do so.
There are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
Gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
This is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from
within
the front
clear
line.
view of this front line position.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Sudan security forces close all major bridges ahead of mass protests called for today. Chinese foreign minister to begin four-day Africa tour with a visit to Eritrea. And suspect in South Africa's parliament fire faces charges of arson and theft. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are what stories making headlines. In business, Kenya's national carrier and South African Airways move closer to establishing an African airline in 2023. And in your sport, record winners Egypt announced their final squad ahead of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. Well, Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi has begun his New Year diplomatic trip to Africa. Wang is expected to arrive in Eritrea today. He will later travel to Kenya and the Comores on the four-day tour. It's become something of a tradition for Chinese foreign ministers to start every year by visiting Africa. In an earlier interview with my colleague Liu Xin, Wang Yi spoke about cooperation between China and African nations.
President Xi Jinping put forward the spirit of China-Africa friendship and cooperation for the first time, set out 4 proposals for building a China-Africa community with a shared future in the new era, and announced 9 programs for cooperation with Africa. All this marked a new milestone in the history of China-Africa relations. Looking ahead, we will focus on the following priorities. First, upholding the principle of mutual assistance to jointly develop a shield for immunity. China will continue to make all-out efforts to provide developing countries in need with COVID vaccines and essential supplies to ensure vaccine accessibility and affordability in developing countries and help boost their capacity, confidence, and resolve to fight the virus. Second, upholding the principle of mutual benefit to jointly develop an engine for development. We will continue to follow the principle of pursuing the greater good and shared interests, advance strategic coordination with other developing countries, increase trade and investment, and expand practical cooperation to support other countries in enhancing capacity for sustainable and self-generated development. Third, upholding the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith to jointly build a bridge for friendship. We will strengthen exchanges and mutual learning with other developing countries in the fields of political parties and political affairs, poverty reduction and development, and medical and health services, deepen friendship among the peoples, jointly safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of the developing countries, and pass on the spirit of friendship and cooperation from generation to generation.
Well, China's support to Eritrea goes back several decades, starting with the Eritrean liberation struggle. The two nations establishing diplomatic ties in 1993, the same year that the Horn of Africa country gained its independence from Ethiopia. CGTN's Daniela Pearson takes a look at their current economic ties.
China and Eritrea's friendship is grounded in principles of non-interference and safeguarding sovereignty and independence. On the development front, China has financed a number of projects. In 2007, China and Eritrea signed economic deals which included the removal of tariffs on Eritrean products imported to China, the partial cancellation of Eritrea's debt to China, and an extension of Chinese technical assistance to Eritrea, particularly in the health sector. More recently, since 2018, a Chinese-made solar power plant has been helping Eritrea access green energy. It produces an average of 11,000 kilowatt-hours of electricity per day. Eritrea has one of the lowest electrification rates in the world. The capital Asmara's unlimited supply of clean energy is able to help boost the country's economic development. In 2021, Eritrea became one of the latest countries to join China's Belt and Road Initiative, marking a new chapter in relations between the two countries. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met the Eritrean Foreign Minister Osman Saleh Mohammed in Dakar in November last year during the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. The two top diplomats hailed Eritrea's joining of the BRI as an opportunity to deepen cooperation in fields such as ports, energy, infrastructure, agriculture, and mining. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
In South Africa, the main suspect in the fire at the Parliament's buildings has made his first appearance in the Cape Town Magistrates Court. Security footage allegedly captured the 49-year-old Zandile Christmas Mafe in the building from around 2 a.m. on Sunday, shortly before the blaze broke out. His lawyers say police arrested the wrong man. The suspect is facing charges of theft, arson, and housebreaking. The case is postponed to January the 11th, and the accused is to remain in custody. Meanwhile, authorities have confirmed that a new blaze at the complex housing South Africa's parliament has been contained. Renee Delcarme has more from Cape Town.
The massive blaze, which tore through South Africa's Houses of Parliament on Sunday, flared up again on Monday night. Firefighters had been putting out hot spots on the 4th floor of the National Assembly building when smouldering wood inside the roof reignited.
The temperature inside the building is still plus minus 100 degrees Celsius, down from what it was yesterday at over 400 degrees Celsius. But what they've done in the meantime is to use a drone that they are putting inside the building to assess the structure of the building until the temperatures can cool down. Then we've also brought in a fire expert that will determine exactly where the fire started.
This is an institution where our constitution was drafted and adopted. This is an institution where the laws of the Republic of South Africa are discussed and are decided upon.
The Speaker of Parliament said she could not imagine how any right-minded South African could deliberately attack Parliament.
Anyone and anyone who does or even thinks and considers attacking the institution of Parliament actually attacks our democracy, attacks everything which South African people fought for. That's actually setting the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa on fire.
The parliamentary precinct, which was ravaged by the fire, is now being treated as a crime scene. Government's forensic investigation is in full swing. Renee Delcarme, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, let's turn to Sudan's political transition. A mass protest against the military are planned for Tuesday. Activists have told people to march to the presidential palace in the capital Khartoum. This is the 13th round of demonstrations since the October 25th takeover. Sudanese protesters are calling on the military to leave politics and hand power back to a civilian government. The developments follow the resignation of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. The United Nations has expressed regret over Hamdok's decision to leave the army in full control. The UN Special Representative in Sudan, Volker Perthes, has warned that the country is risking progress made since the ousting of long-term leader Omar al-Bashir in 2019. Well, for the latest on the situation, our correspondent Mustapha Ibrahim is standing by in Khartoum. Thank you so much for joining us, Mustapha. What is the latest on today's planned protests?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Yesterday, the protest was being announced yesterday by the CSI, and they calling on the street for the rights and democracy. Now the situation, the start of the protest. So all people are going today asking, because this is the first protest after the Prime Minister resigned. So all people asking for the civil government. They still continue street declarations and they're asking for democracy. So the people now are start the movement now, and they're going to be marched to the presidential place.
Well, speak to us, Mustapha, about today's protest.
But they closed the bridge, and the internet is okay. They don't cut it as usual. Everything.
Yes, continue. I was going to ask you about today's protests and them being the 13th round of demonstrations that we've seen since the October 25th takeover by the military. How are these protests affecting life in the cities, Mustapha? And also just speak to us about public service delivery, how that's possible while all this is happening.
Yes, we noticed the protest effect because here in Khartoum, in the capital, they close the bridge, they close the streets, they close everything. It's not allowed you to go to any place. You just be around in your neighborhood. So its effect on the surface, the hard labor work people, they're not allowed to go seek for the job. People all time staying, like it's been like the 4 days off in Sudan. People staying in their houses doing nothing. The markets are closed, the supermarkets are closed, the malls are closed. And also it's bad because there is people, they have diseases, they're not being able to go to the hospital because the security are everywhere and it's not allowed you to go everywhere. And so this is effect on the surface, the patient cannot able to go to the hospital. But comparing with the state of Sudan, the life is ordinary there, everything is good. But here in Sudan, we have stuck, we're not doing anything. It's effect on the surfaces, and effect on the employees, and effect in the country itself.
Mustapha, is the military leadership expected to engage with the protest leaders in discussing how to maybe replace Abdallah Hamdok and also what their move is from here?
Yes. Yeah, the general commander was saying this. He's asking all the parties in Sudan for coming together and set a meeting to bring a new prime minister to the Sudan. And it must be acceptable by all the parties. And the most important part is the streets. The street is a very important part. So they are going to agree about someone is going to be acceptable by all the parties. And they make a suggestion about the former finance minister al-Badawi, but still there's the process, there's not confirmed yet.
Thank you so much for all that, Mustapha. Correspondent Mustapha Ibrahim speaking to us from Khartoum on the latest situation on those protests that are planned today in Sudan. Well, on to Southern Africa now, where Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi and his wife, Isara Nyusi, have tested positive for COVID-19. A statement from the Office of the Presidency issued Monday night also said that they were both on routine checkup during the diagnosis. President Nyusi and First Lady are now under quarantine and are asymptomatic. The Mozambican government says that the Omicron variant has become the dominant strain during the country's third wave of COVID-19. The Southern African country has so far recorded over 191,000 infections, according to the Africa CDC. The health ministry there has also recorded 12 deaths in the last 2 days, bringing the total deaths to about 2,000 since the COVID-19 outbreak began. Well, meanwhile, Botswana's President Masisi has also tested positive for COVID-19. According to government spokesperson John Thomas Dipoe's statement on Monday, Masisi is currently in mandatory self-isolation. He's not exhibited any symptoms and will be under close medical monitoring. In the meantime, Vice President Slumber Zwane will be acting as president until further notice. This comes at a time when the Omicron variant is becoming dominant worldwide. It was first detected in November of 2021 in Botswana, where 71% of the population is already vaccinated. The Southern African country has been putting in place measures to fight the highly contagious variant. The government recently launched a campaign for a booster vaccine and also lowered the inoculation age to 12. Botswana has been experiencing a sharp rise in COVID-19 infections since November, recording at least 800 cases daily. Let's now take a short break and return. More in Africa Live, including South Sudan's president commits to creating Truth and Reconciliation Commission by the end of this month.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Hey there, my name is Asta Tao, and there are 3 things you should know about me. I love food, I'm obsessed with history, and I travel whenever I can. So join me as I explore cultures through food, meet innovative chefs, and celebrate Africa's diversity.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Let's head over to South Africa, where health authorities there believe that the country has passed the peak of the 4th wave of COVID infections. The government has already lifted certain restrictions to allow the public an opportunity to rebuild after one of the strictest lockdowns on the continent. Reporting from Johannesburg, here's C.S. du Plessis.
The mood amongst the people of the Republic of South Africa is upbeat following the government's latest decision to ease some of the restrictions. The scrapping of the midnight curfew and the controversial alcohol sales ban has seen spirits lifted of the citizens of the Rainbow Nation, as the focus shifts onto a new year after a rather demanding 12 months. The general feeling is of a renewed positivity, despite the country remaining on alert level 1 of lockdown. Cases have dropped drastically, with the latest figures indicating that South Africa has indeed passed the peak of the Omicron-fueled 4th wave. As of midnight, 4,379 new cases were reported, while 30 people succumbed to the coronavirus, taking the death toll to 91,228. Government continues to urge the public to adhere to strict measures of social distancing, hand washing and the wearing of masks, while researchers believe the reason why the peak has passed is due to 3 factors: South Africa's relatively young population, the country is in the middle of the southern hemisphere summer where respiratory diseases are uncommon, and due to the country having some sort of herd immunity from the previous variants, making their immune systems less susceptible to contracting symptoms requiring hospitalization. It must be pointed out, though, that there is a steady increase in people being admitted to hospital, but it is mainly those who are unvaccinated, and hospitals are not at capacity. Government has also announced that health workers have until the 14th of January to get their Johnson & Johnson booster shot after phase 2 of the Sesonke trial started in November last year. According to health authorities, having the booster shot 6 months after the first jab considerably is good protection against what is now the dominant variant in South Africa. C.S. du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Sudan's President Salva Kiir says that he is committed to implementing the country's 2018 peace deal. President Kiir says that his government is working to set up all institutions dictated by the peace deal that ended 6 years of civil war in South Sudan. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's President Salva Kiir says the country needs healing if it is to recover and re-emerge on the path to unity and sustainable peace. 6 years of civil war from 2013 to 2018 divided South Sudanese people along ethnic lines.
We will be embarking on the process of establishing the Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing by the end of January 2022.
But the country's main opposition leader, who is also the first vice president, says more still needs to be done.
Even if we succeed in formation of any other structures without the security arrangements, the process, the new setup would be very, very shaky indeed.
The Commission for Truth, Reconciliation and Healing is expected to enable the country to acknowledge its past violence. The Commission is also expected to help the truth to be known publicly, enable justice to be done, and support victims and the society to move beyond the painful past into a united and peaceful future. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
We turn our attention to North Africa now, where in Egypt, the Interior Minister has been undertaking reforms in its prison system. There's now a deliberate shift towards having rehabilitation centers in place of prisons. Wanja Mungai reports.
This facility is one of the newest projects under the Interior Ministry's prison reforms in Egypt. It is located in Badir, some 55 kilometers northeast of the capital, Cairo. Authorities at the ministry are seeking to transfer inmates here from 3 public prisons.
3 general prisons will also be shut down amid the inauguration of Badir's Correctional and Rehabilitation Center.
Officials say the center will only accommodate inmates serving short sentences. They are hoping to change the old mindsets that prisoners should only face punishment with no chance to reform. Instead, efforts will be put to prepare them for life after jail.
We are talking about changing the ideas relating to the punishment establishment in Egypt, turning it from a prison to a correctional and rehabilitation center, from a prisoner to a resident, from the negative image of someone who committed a crime to a citizen that is being prepared and rehabilitated in these centers.
A medical center, mosque, church, courthouse, and a nursery for mothers is part of the package here.
The ministry's efforts have kicked off throughout various legislative and executive levels in order to reform the concept of prisons, turning them into correctional and rehabilitation centers, a model that reflects the extent of progress and modernizations.
The Badir Rehabilitation Center is one of the many such facilities that the government has opened in efforts to change the country's approach towards the conditions of inmates. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
The day's business news is coming up after the short break, including Kenya's national carrier and South African Airways move closer to establishing an African airline in 2023.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Time now for the day's business news. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced that Kenya Airways and South African Airways are to combine operations to form a new carrier, Pan-African Airline. During his visit to South Africa last November, Kenyatta witnessed the signing of a strategic partnership framework between the two airlines to form a Pan-African Airline group by 2023. KQ, which had predicted a grim full-year performance due to COVID-19, made a net loss of over $100 million in the 6 months to June 2021. Its would-be partner, SAA, returned to operations in late September after a one-year hiatus. Egyptian authorities have announced the finance ministry to guarantee its national carrier $317 million in long-term financing to help withstand the effects of COVID-19. Authorities say the state-owned EgyptAir holding company is to get the financing from the National Bank of Egypt and Bank Misr. CGTN's Yasser Kim has the details.
The Egyptian flagship carrier has been enduring a tough period with travel restrictions and global lockdowns since the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. The of EgyptAir holding company had CGTN that the government's support has been vital amidst the crisis.
We are severely affected. Airlines are the most affected companies due to the pandemic. And we have a very bad effect on the financial situation. We have losses of almost 600 million Egyptian pound monthly. The main reasons that we still can sustain and we still can operate, and it was a great support from the government to EgyptAir. EgyptAir is a national company. That's why the government is insisting to support EgyptAir.
Current EgyptAir chairman Amr Abulanin says debt has exceeded $800 billion by 2021. And although the industry has been slowly recovering, the virus and its variants is still destabilizing the global travel industry. The latest government's $320 million loan is the third to be advanced in 2 years. Part of the money will go to cover the company's obligations, like wages, plane leases, and maintenance expenses. The rest will finance the airline's 5-year plan to return to profit-making.
First, EgyptAir started to operate low-cost passenger flights to target a new segment of clients, Egyptians and foreigners. EgyptAir currently reaches 65 series, and its 5-year plan is targeting to reach 96 series. This means that it will increase routes, flights and destinations by more than 45% in the next 5 years to make up for the losses.
Plan also focuses on cargo flights as an essential form of revenue, especially that IATA statistics show air freight revenue accounts for over 30% of the industry's total revenue in 2021, up from an average 10 to 15% pre-pandemic revenue.
During the first year of the coronavirus, when passenger flights were completely suspended, EgyptAir restructured its planes, removed seats, and made space for cargo and transported goods from Cairo to the rest of the world. EgyptAir is accordingly negotiating to rent or buy new planes to grow its cargo fleet.
Experts say the government's financial support will go a long way in helping the 90-year-old air national carrier survive the tough times and recoup its major losses. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Self-proclaimed Ugandan wastepreneur Faith Aweko saw an opportunity to turn plastic waste into fashionable pieces. Aweko collects bits of discarded waste and turns them into durable and sustainable handbags. This provides a solution by diverting some of the waste that would otherwise have ended up littering the city and clogging vital sewage systems.
Kampala, Uganda's capital, churns out 1,000 tons of garbage per day, according to the National Environment Management Authority. But what many see as trash was viewed as a solution-based business opportunity, turning plastic waste from landfill sites into fashionable handbags.
I like to call myself a wastepreneur because I deal in waste, and this is something that most people don't want to associate with waste, plastics, dump sites, garbage, and yet this is something that is providing employment to women who are collecting the waste, to women who are sorting, to women who are washing, and also women who are processing and making the beautiful bags that Reform Africa is making. And then we are also able to provide an income for ourselves and the other employees. And I'm also championing in saving the environment.
The Reform Africa team regularly collects, washes and hangs out discarded plastic bags from Kampala's dump sites. Aweko has employed 8 women whom she trained and hired from the surrounding community.
I am very happy with this job because it has transformed my life very much. It has created a living for me and my child. I am now also able to assist my spouse when he's struggling. This job has really helped me. The other thing I like about it is that we empty communities of these polythene bags, which saves the environment.
Once the bags are clean and dry, Aweko uses what she calls a heat presser to flatten and fuse them together. The pieces are then cut into patterns and stitched together to create colorful bags and accessories. Aweko's bags sell for between $16 and $25 in local shops and international markets, while using social media platforms to land more clients. Aweko is a graduate of the Social Innovation Academy outside of Kampala, which helps young aspiring social entrepreneurs take their ideas to the market.
We have shops both here in Uganda and also in Europe. In Uganda here we have 6 shops, 4 in Kampala and 2 upcountry that retail our products on a commission base. and we also do wholesale to international market. We have over 8 shops that wholesale our products. That's in America and also in Europe.
Aweko says the jobs and positive effect on the environment she is creating more than make up for all the hard work and criticism. Part of her vision for the Reform Africa project is to encourage more Ugandans to recycle and help people learn new income-generating skills. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Well, it's Tunisia now, where tens of thousands of craftswomen are trying to regroup after their businesses were battered by COVID-19. By preserving traditional skill sets, these women hope to improve their socio-economic situation. Reporting from Tunis, here's Adnan Chouachi.
Zina and dozens of pottery artisans work and live in this popular neighborhood in the suburbs of the capital city, Tunis. Despite the negative repercussions of the health crisis on this business, the craftswoman is not willing to leave her job.
As craftswomen, we've always made a living from selling different items which are necessary in any house in Tunisia. The pandemic has affected this business model and it's hard to resume normal activity. Our usual and passing customers, as well as foreign tourists, have deserted the area. We cannot earn a decent living if we haven't been selling our craft items for 18 months.
Several initiatives have been launched in Tunisia to promote women artisans, including online retail. Daula Ismail believes that these projects are made for the new generation of artisans who are familiar with the internet and the new technologies.
I started working here at 18 in 1974. I have learned this skill from my ancestors. It's the same technique. Nothing has changed for hundreds of years. We only use clay, water and fire as well as traditional items. We don't use technology to market and sell our handmade pottery. This is for young artisans. This skill will disappear if young people don't learn it and take over.
The Minister of Social Affairs declared that the government will provide financial and technical assistance to Tunisian female pottery artisans to help them sustain business during this difficult time.
These craftswomen who are preserving heritage crafts need and deserve state support. They were ignored by former governments. We will work with other departments to improve their working conditions as well as their social and economic situation.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, artisans struggled financially as tourism to Tunisia plummeted and many national trade fairs were called off. Experts have said that the Tourism and Handicrafts Department needs to invest in digital platforms and to provide digital marketing support, enabling pottery makers to expand their market reach. On August 13, 2021, Tunisia celebrated the National Women's Day. The head of state visited the few remaining pottery artisans in the Grand Tunis district. Qais Said pledged to defend the socio-economic rights of craftswomen and to improve their working conditions. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
The sport news coming up after the break, including